board retreat.
Can't go in or?
No, it's over at the.
This is that spam I was talking about. It calls and says it's you calling.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so we're going to bring the meeting to order. Welcome everybody to the, are you up and running? Great. Thank you for anticipating me. Welcome to the Town of Williston's Development Review Board for Tuesday, October 23rd, and again, we are opening the meeting up at 7 p.m. The published agenda, there are 3 items on it. DP 18-21, the Robert family, has been continued to November 13th. So if you are here for that, that will be on the 13th. We do always offer a public forum at the beginning of the meeting. If anybody has anything they'd like to address the board with that does not pertain to items on the agenda tonight. Anybody want to take the stand? Now's your chance. Soapbox. Okay. With that in mind, if you are here to comment on a public hearing, if somebody in front of you has already said or talked about the items that you wish to talk about, you can just stand up and agree with them. You don't need to necessarily state the same thing again. We're going to start with DP 19-03, Randy Brownell and Joe LaMarche. If you're here, come on up, have a seat at the table. Welcome.
Hi.
Would you state your name and your address, please?
Sure, Joe LaMarche. I'm at 4344 South Brownell Road.
Great. Well, thank you very much and welcome. Melinda, are you it?
I'm it.
You're it. All right. Staff goes first.
Right. This is a request for pre-application review for a proposed 3-lot residential subdivision of a 51.3 acre parcel. Parcel's located at 225 Rosewood Drive and 4354 South Brownell Road in the ARZD. The property is currently developed with 1 single-family home, and the applicant's proposing to subdivide the single lot into 3 single-family home lots sized at roughly 2.5 acres each. The applicant's proposing to set aside 38.4 acres as protected open space. The subject parcel resulted from subdivision 0417, approved by the DRB on May 11th, 2004. And that subdivision was to divide the parcel at the town line. And at that time, since the portion of the parcel in Williston had 1 mobile home and no further development was proposed, the subdivision was not required to obtain allocation through growth management. On June 5th, 2017, the applicant received, or the applicant submitted, an administrative permit, and received an administrative permit to remove this existing dwelling, construct an access driveway and a new 2-bedroom single-family dwelling located at 4354 South Brownell Road. Under Williston Development Bylaw Growth Management, a lot that's created prior to 1990s allowed one dwelling by right without having to go through growth management review. And since the applicant removed an existing dwelling and replaced it with a single-family dwelling, neither pre-application review nor discretionary permit was required at that time. On November 28th, 2017, the applicant presented a proposal to the DRB for a 7-lot subdivision, and that this public hearing was continued to December 12th, 2017, at which time the DRB recommended the project move forward to growth management. And at the growth management hearing on March 27th, 2018, the DRB did not award any allocation for this project. The use of the proposed subdivision will be for residential development. Single and two-family dwelling units are an allowed use in the ARZD. And then the applicant's proposing a subdivision which will result in 3 dwelling units on 51.3 acres of land, where the maximum allowed density in the zone is 1 dwelling unit per 80,000 square feet, or 1.84 acres. The Williston Development Bylaw, Chapter 19, requires that lands with wetlands, wetland buffers, and slopes in excess of 30% be taken out of the density calculation, and slopes with between 15 and 29.9% be calculated at a reduced density of 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres. Staff's reviewed the constraints analysis, found it to be accurate and satisfactory. So subtracting the wetlands and wetland buffers and steep slopes, we end up with a total of 15.53 dwelling units that the parcel can support, rounding down to 15 dwelling units as the maximum amount allowed on the parcel. And the applicant's proposed 3 dwelling units. The applicant indicated they've done a wetland delineation at the time of the application's submittal. The wetlands had yet to be confirmed by the state wetland ecologist, but my understanding is that the state wetlands office has confirmed that the class 2 wetlands that were delineated have been delineated accurately, and that the additional wetlands are class 3 and not class 2. So this density constraints analysis is pretty accurate. As a subdivision of a parcel of land 10.5 acres or greater, Chapter 31 of the Williston Development Bylaw requires the project to set aside a minimum of 75% of the area of the parent parcel as permanently protected open space. And a new requirement as of this May 2018 is that that open space must be platted as a separate lot. The open space must include steep slopes, wetland areas and setbacks, and any other resources required to be protected under Chapter 27. The applicant's proposed 38.4 acres of open space meets the 75% requirement, and the site plan indicates that all slopes in excess of 30% are within the open space as required by Williston Development Bylaw, Chapter 31. There are approximately 5.25 acres of land shown on a site plan as the location of previously proposed lots 1 through 4, lots that were proposed in last year's application. And that land is neither proposed for development nor included in the open space. So as it stands, the applicant's 38.4 acres of open space meets the minimum requirement of 75%. And the Conservation Commission has not recommended that this additional 5 acres of land be included in the open space. The fact that it's not included in the open space means the applicant could, in the future, propose development on these 5.25 acres. So you may wish to recommend that this land be added to the protected open space. Within lots 6 and 7, there are Class 3 wetlands shown, and so I guess after I wrote this staff report, they hadn't yet been confirmed by the state. So they have been confirmed as Class 3 wetlands. Williston Development Bylaw, Chapter 29, states that the DRB may, upon the recommendation of the Conservation Commission, require that those Class 3 wetlands, if they have significant functional values, remain in their natural vegetation. You can also require that a functional assessment be done to the Class 3 wetlands to determine if they have significant functional values. So the Conservation Commission has not recommended either of these two options. So for access, the existing home on proposed Lot 5 is accessed by a recently constructed driveway from South Brownell Road. Lots 6 and 7 are proposed to be accessed from Rosewood Drive. Williston Development Bylaw, Chapter 13, allows up to 5 dwelling units on a shared driveway, so this would meet that requirement. For driveways serving multiple dwellings, the grade shall not exceed 10%. The Williston Department of Public Works has additional standards for private driveways and private streets that must be satisfied, and I will get into a little more detail later on when I talk about department comments. When the DRB considered this proposal by the same applicants for the 7-lot subdivision in 2017, some concerns were raised about whether or not the applicants had legal means of access via Rosewood Drive. At that time, staff recommended that the DRB require the applicant produce documentation of legal means of access for review by the town's attorney at the time of discretionary permit application submittal. In fact, I believe the applicant has submitted some documentation, was submitted last March at the time of growth management, but the town's attorney has not yet reviewed this documentation. Rosewood Drive crosses over the town line into Shelburne. Any changes to this access road or any other proposed development in Shelburne may require a permit from that jurisdiction. And the applicant is advised to contact the town of Shelburne regarding potential permitting requirements for this proposed development. Rosewood Drive is accessed from Route 116, which is a state highway. At initial construction, Rosewood Drive was required to obtain a state highway access permit. This proposed development may require additional permitting from Vermont AOT, and the applicant will need to submit a letter of intent to AOT regarding the proposed addition of 2 new dwelling units to be served by Rosewood Drive. And permits for new single-family homes will have to be accompanied by impact fees, including traffic impact fees. Pre-application is a stage of review where the DRB can ask for a traffic impact study if they desire. Staff notes that this proposed development, 2 additional single-family dwelling units would produce 2.02 new PM peak hour trip ends, and therefore we do not recommend the DRB request a traffic study for this project. For landscaping and setbacks, Williston Development Bylaw, Chapter 31, establishes minimum property line setbacks in the ARZD as follows. Front setback must be 50 feet from the town highway right-of-way. The side and rear setbacks must be at least 15 feet. And Chapter 23 states that open space residential developments in the ARZD must provide ample buffers, but doesn't specify minimum buffer widths. The DRB is allowed considerable discretion in determining the minimum width and what type of landscape buffer will be appropriate in a particular context. It's, in staff's opinion, the proposed location of house sites on the applicant's site plan will allow for an ample landscape buffer of existing vegetation to screen the development from adjoining properties, and is therefore in conformance with Chapter 23. If so authorized, the applicant will proceed with a residential growth management allocation request for 2 additional dwelling units. Williston's Police, Fire, and Public Works Department reviewed the project. The police department had no comments. The fire department submitted attached comments regarding driveway specifications for emergency access, and they list several things that they would like to have done with this development. Staff recommends that the applicant meet with the fire department prior to submitting an application for discretionary permit. The Department of Public Works submitted attached comments regarding public works standard specifications and requirements. And the Department of Public Works comments note the public works standards for a private driveway, in that a maximum of 2 rear lots without public road frontage may be served by a private driveway. Additionally, private driveway may replace direct road access for 2 abutting lots with existing public road frontage. So it appears that the proposed access driveway, Rosewood Drive, may not meet these standards for a private driveway, and may require that the driveway be upgraded to a private street. Staff recommends the applicant meet with the Director of Public Works to clarify the requirements for the proposed access driveway prior to submitting an application for discretionary permit. This proposal was also reviewed by the Williston Conservation Commission, and their recommendations are as follows. A habitat disturbance assessment be prepared by a qualified wildlife biologist and submitted by the applicant as part of the discretionary permit application. The protected open space must be platted as a separate lot. Any future development or subdivision of areas outside the open space and not included in this proposal, namely the 5-acre area of that was previously proposed for development in 2017, but is not this time around, that any future proposal for development shall be reviewed by the Conservation Commission for impacts to natural resources, including steep slopes. The applicant shall submit a draft trail easement as part of an application for discretionary permit using existing trails where appropriate and working with the Conservation Commission to determine a desired alignment. The applicant's required to have a wetlands delineation to be submitted as part of an application for discretionary permit. And the discretionary permit application shall be accompanied by a professionally prepared runoff and erosion control plan that shows how compliance with the performance standards of Chapter 29 will be attained, both during construction of the proposed development and continuing use of the site. Staff proposes that all town department and board recommendations be adopted as DRB recommendations moving forward. And staff is recommending the DRB authorize the applicant to proceed to growth management review in March of 2018, and have included some pre-application recommendations for you to consider.
Great, thank
That
you.
would be March of 2019.
2019.
Thank you. That's a pretty comprehensive document that the staff has put together. Have you read it?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, what else can I say?
I don't know. And I'm going to ask you, what else would you like to say?
I don't know, really. I mean, we just really wanted to develop a couple of pieces of property to kind of offset some of the costs of the whole parcel and the house that we built up there. And that was pretty much it. I mean, the 4 lots before were going to be for our children, but we got, kind of shot down last year, so that didn't happen.
Well, you always have a bite, do have a bite at the apple again.
No, I know. Well, yeah, if you don't put it into the open space.
So do you have any questions about what Melinda just went over?
No, I've been talking with Emily today to find out when we should go to see the Director of Public Works and the Fire Department and all of that. And she said just before March, or sometime early next year, to talk with them.
Have you have obviously a professional engineer. Have you run
Yeah,
this?
TCE helped us last year, and we haven't hired them again yet. I think we will have to do something at some point, but they didn't think we needed to get to this level.
Get to hear it, yes. At some point, you definitely will
Yeah.
want to do that.
Yeah, we would have to do that. Yeah, so we're aware of that.
So if you have any other comments?
I know.
Okay. Open it up to the board. Questions for the board?
On the 5-acre parcel, do you have a preference that you would like to do with that? Would you like to add it to the open space or retain it?
No, I do not want to, and not at this time, no.
I thought there were dumps that were brought up last time.
There were what?
They were supposed to.
Hang on, hold on. So yes, I believe in a prior
And
hearing.
I've seen nothing in here talking about whether or not they went out and looked for them, or they found anything. So I'm just kind of curious about that. And then the second thing I'm curious is, can the town of Williston tell Shelburne that they have to widen Rosewood on their portion to meet our requirements of having those staging areas for the fire engines?
No.
Just out of curiosity, that's the other aspect I got.
It's not our jurisdiction.
So in other words, potentially, the things that we're asking for in here, potentially.
Extend on Williston's jurisdiction.
Only on Williston's jurisdiction, not on the, okay, that's all. Those are the 2 things I was curious
But
about.
in order to develop it, the staff does recommend that you go and talk to Williston if you're going
Yeah.
to be. Shelburne. I'm sorry, Shelburne, you're talking Shelburne.
Yeah, I've talked to Shelburne, it was quite some time ago, but it was in between the last round and this one. And I can't remember the man's name, but I did talk with him. And can I just ask what you said, your initial question was? Because I didn't quite hear what you said.
This initially came up back in October, there was an individual who said that there were dumps back there.
Oh, dumps.
They actually had
Yeah.
like cars and all that kind of junk apparently buried back there. And I thought that there was, at some point, there was supposed to be some investigation before this came back on that. And I don't see it listed in here, so I don't know if there was a resolution or if it never occurred.
We did speak,
Hold on 1 second. Melinda, you,
Can I just can I just address that?
please.
So in 2017, when they submitted an application, we did get some comment from the public about potential dumps on the site. We did, did some investigation with the state and asked them if there's any history of dumping on the site, and they said there was no documented history of solid waste or hazardous waste on the site. So, we had investigated that. And the other thing is that, solid waste or hazardous waste is really something that's regulated by the state. It's not really regulated by our bylaw. And so that's, yeah.
But I'm just saying, so in other words, we don't know if the state ever bothered to investigate the question?
I don't.
Because, I mean, if all they're looking for is documented dumping, I guarantee you that most people, when they're dumping illegally, do not document it.
No, I mean by document, I mean, they have investigated they have a list of sites that they've investigated.
Okay.
This site was not on their list.
Okay,
I don't believe they went out and investigated this site.
that's all I need to know. Okay, thank you.
Okay. There's a gentleman back there who raised his hand. Sir, if you would like to make a comment, please state your name and your address.
James Beecher, 4987.
Can you state your name one more time?
James Beecher. I've lived there for my whole life. And in that previous letter, I stated it very well, what was up there. And at that time, being tucked up in the woods, nobody's gonna see it. But several people still remember that, viewing it from Route 116, cars being buried amongst construction debris. The state, that's not gonna be documented, state dumped, because they never knew about it. So the stuff that you're talking about is that somebody called it in or stated years ago. This was a dump. That was like a 60 to 100 foot embankment. I used to go up there when Homer DuBois used to own it with my two sisters, who also remember it very well, like it was today, of the stuff. And they can very well describe what's up there. And not only that, there were oil barrels on January 30th of 2013 that were taken out of there, that were tucked in the woods, and the Kodiak Construction came up with a tandem and a 1-ton, and they came out with those trucks full of barrels. And that was taken out of there, so when it came to sell it, there was no remnants of it. And yes, I can identify where all those dumps are, because I live there and I still live next to it.
Okay?
And it was put in records that there was supposed to be a phase 2. In phone conversation with Brad, I asked him if all that stuff followed it, and he stated yes. I realize he's new. Does that follow that? And who is going to be responsible if something does come up? Is it the town of Williston that owns that open land?
No, it's owned by the individual.
Okay.
So somebody, I'm,
Did you notify the state of this?
so Paul, hang on 1 second. So, if there is a dump, illegal, whatever, it is outside of the jurisdiction of this board.
Okay, but why was...
Hang on, hold on. It is outside of the jurisdiction of this board. It would be, as Melinda has stated, a state matter, Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC. If you have a concern, I suggest that you write them a letter. Tell them what you know. This is not the venue, okay? In terms of a phase 1 or phase 2, this is also not the venue. That would be the venue of probably a financing institution that would require that. In order for somebody to come in and build a house, if there was a public record, or if you had written a letter to DEC and had gone in the file, when their attorneys are doing the title search, they're going to come up with that record, I assume, and the bank is going to flag it and say, we need to know what's going on up there, or else we're not going to finance the property.
That's why the previous person never bought it, because he was...
Maybe, but that's not the, that is, you know, we're here to implement the unified bylaw of the town of Williston. And that has to do with planning and zoning, of which dumping, while a concern, is not the purview of this board. Other questions on that topic or other topics regarding this hearing?
I wanted to let all the board members say their piece, and as I will put a side note to that, but you kind of just answered it. I can say I told my kids to stay off those hills because they're all rotten through now. My concern is the the conservation that this is getting, 38 acres is getting dedicated to.
It's not getting dedicated to it. All it's simply happening is that it is owned, the ownership is retained by the landowner, but the future development, 75% of the overall space, is simply being placed into
A conservation.
yes, but still retained, the ownership is retained by the applicants.
So the trails and stuff that are put on it for the use of the area,
That would be open to the public if and when this permitting went through and the trail agreements were signed, were dedicated to the town.
Okay, and so.
Access.
I'm grateful that you all are just trying to do your job, and you're trying to make everybody able to live all inside, you know, and fences make great neighbors and so on and so forth. And I get that and I respect that. And I'm not for not growth.
So can I stop you for 1 second, because I didn't do something I'm supposed to do.
Yes.
I happen to know your name, but for the record, would you state
Sure.
your name and your address?
My name is Craig Sampson. I live at 120 Rosewood Drive.
Thank you.
Sure. And I missed you guys in December, and there's some new faces and some missing faces. You know, and I have plenty to say, as you know, and so I've kept notes and I've.
And now is the time.
Yes, so what Melinda had read is exactly what I printed off, and I made notes on it. And I guess my biggest thing is just simply this: I think people have the right to develop their land. I have no issues with that. And what I stated last year was that as long as, and this is what the board's job is maybe not necessarily to say, oh, there's a dump there, we can't give you your pre-application. That's not the issue. We call the state, we let them know, hey, there's unsafe areas, so on and so forth. We can do that. My understanding is the board's job is to make sure that any applicant and the residents around them are all complying to the law and bylaws of the town of Williston. Is that a correct assessment?
Yep.
Okay, so with that said, I want to make sure that that's being followed even before the pre-application. So when we first met last year, it was put off until December. I happened to not be able to be here. There was a lot of people here in that meeting. We all stayed very late because it was like the hornet's nest got hit. What I'm noticing is that it's not any longer the 7 lots or the 8 lots. It's just 2 now at the end of our road. And so perhaps is now the time. I mean, I can stop right here and the rest of the, as long as I'm able to say my piece written up from my notes. Sir, you brought up the don'ts. And so I just want to make sure that, you know, you all have your chance to say what you need, because I'm writing notes as you say those things, because I'm going to address those as well. So I just wanted to make sure that I could just say, oh yeah, there are dump areas up there, and I told my kids to stay away from them. But if that's not what this is for here, then I guess that's not what this is for. So,
Craig, the floor is yours.
alrighty.
And if someone says something after you give your piece, you can come up and add to those as well.
Alrighty, sounds great. Sounds great. We don't have our big maps up here, and TCE's not here to this is it. I'm just going to stop it.
You got us worried. You're under arrest.
It's warm. It's warm. It's warm. And you know I can speak. So I just printed off what you have. So I don't have anything different than what you have. I printed it right off the website. Okay? Well, somebody much more powerful and smarter than I did. So I still notice here, you know, there was never a, you know, as far as the access to the back goes, and I think it was, Paul, may I call you Paul? I want to keep calling you sir.
Don't call me sir, I work for a living.
All right, you and me both. So you had mentioned when it got sold, did that give away the fact that they have that right of way? And then there was debate on, well, it was my property, it wasn't my property, it was a right of way, it was an owned road, it wasn't. So we've all done our due diligence. Yeah, I said the TCE, you can go downstairs and you can look at my tax bill, which, by the way, I'm still getting charged on the 1.9 acres where that road goes through. But that's...
Keep it on topic.
Yes, sir. All right, let me get back to my notes. I appreciate that. So I will say this to start. I understand the staff has a job to do, and I understand the DRB has a job to do. And so if any of my comments hit home, or maybe come across like...
Craig, let us worry about that. Keep
You
it on
got it.
topic.
So I'm going to start with this. It seems like an end around, because it started with we could put 17, it went to 14, it went to 7. We had a review. The neighbors were all stirred up. Then it went to December. It got pre-approval. Then it went to March. It got shot down. And now here we are. Let's just do 2 houses at the end of Williston, Rosewood Drive, because it's not going to affect anybody on South Purnell. It's not going to affect, anybody on 116. It's nice to see you here, neighbor. But it affects us, and it affects our property, and it affects our well. So this end around, I don't think is you guys' to do. I'll get to that open space in just a minute. I'm going to start right at the beginning. I'm going to stay right on track. Does that sound good, sir? That, sir. All right. I wrote so many notes, I got all my pages all skipped and skinny. Here we go. So we heard the project history, we heard everything that has gone on and that was up for review, the use of it. The applicant has indicated, page 2 by the way, that the wetlands as delineated on the site plan need to be confirmed by the state wetlands program. Any additional class 2 wetlands or wetland buffers represent the parcel would reduce the amount of parcel availability for the purpose of calculating density. Melinda, you said, quote, your understanding is that this was all set and approved, end quote. But do we get an actual report did the state actually go out there? Do you have an actual piece of paper or report? Your understanding is, that's what you said, quote unquote, is that they did approve this, but do we have a piece of paper that says so? Because shouldn't we have that before the pre-applicant should be allowed to have this piece of property?
Do you have a wetlands delineation?
In fact,
yes or no?
there is.
It
yes,
was
there is.
emailed to us today, and I got it on my phone on my way home from Rutland. So yes, I do have it.
All right, so there's check 1 for me saying,
So Craig?
I say we
Craig,
push this, yes sir.
address me, not the staff.
Okay,
This is pre-application.
yep,
Okay, so pre-application, this is a discussion.
yep.
Okay, so the material being submitted to the board is up for discussion, can be changed, can be added, can be deleted.
Excellent.
So you will have, this, we are not making a decision that is going to grant the approval of 2 lots or 3 lots at this point in time. There is another hearing at some point down the road at which that might occur. So you are in no danger of having something decided upon tonight,
Thank you.
okay?
Thank you.
So-
That calms me a little bit.
Okay, good. I think we had this conversation last time you were here.
Yes, and
Okay.
I also realized that December 12th, it was, yeah, go ahead and go for it. And Moore has, I'm gonna sit down, because the heart rate goes down 10 beats per minute. Because I don't want to come across like, I'm mad or angry at anybody. The open space, let's see, second paragraph down. There are approximately 5.25 acres of land shown on the site plan, yada, 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 all the way down to in the future purpose development of these 5.2 acres. See, this is the end around that I'm worried about. This is let's just go for the 2 houses. The DRB is more likely to give you the pre-app. You're more likely to, in March, get your development. You satisfy all these little things, and then you come back and you ask for a little bit more. I would request, and maybe this isn't the time or the place, that 5.25, as somebody on the board said, let's throw that right in there, let's not develop it. I'm gonna be a lot easier and a lot nicer in the sense of, like I said, I had no problem people developing their property. It's just when you sneak, and the pictures are still in here. There's pictures on that are not even part of this parcel. I don't know why they're still in there. It's the Eau Claire's farm. I mean, why are those in there? If one, like I said last time, if one part is false, then what else is false? So that's that. So I'm moving right on from that. Access. The existing home on proposed lot 5 is accessed by the recently constructed driveway from South Purnell, road lot 6 and 7. Well, anybody who lives in the area can see the reason why they're not able to put the houses up past them. I know the 10% grade law. Rosewood Drive is 7.5 at its steepest point. Believe me, I had it shopped to make sure. 4 houses can't be put up behind them. 3 houses can't be put up behind them. 1 more house can't be put up behind them. So I get it. I understand that. My concern is, though, is that you're looking to put more houses in the future. Does that affect The wastewater, does that affect, because the Du Boises were here last time, regarding where the septic's gonna get put? I know this is pre-approval, but we could save a lot of time and then a lot of money if we just follow the rules, cross the Ts, dot the Is, and I'd have no argument with it. I'm gonna move on from the access. Other than the fact that, 5th paragraph down, the attorney of the town of Williston has had, the application has been submitted, the applicant has submitted some documentation which has not been yet reviewed by the town's attorney. He must be busy, or she must be way busier than I am. March, we're in October, and still hasn't been reviewed. These are the things that just throw flags, sir. They concern me. That what isn't getting reviewed, what isn't gonna get passed through and passed by. And then all of a sudden, we're looking outside our door, we're trying to drive down our road, and things are getting dug and pulled and yanked. Just a point of concern.
Keep going.
All right. So I got a little yes or no column, like in high school or like in grammar school, when you sent a little note, do you like me, do you love me, yes or no. So I put 3 little checks, yeses or nos here. I hopefully was gonna get a smile from a couple of you. That's my commercial break. So Rosewood Drive crosses over the town line into Shelburne. Any changes to this access road or any other proposed development in Shelburne may require a permit from that jurisdiction. The applicant is advised to contact the town of Shelburne regarding potential permitting requirements for the purpose of development. Well, I understand we just heard videoed and recorded. I think I remember having a conversation, but I can't remember. That's not contacting. There's no trail. There's no notes. There's no email. We as the neighbors have the right to know, and you all are making sure that that is happening. Is my understanding. The second thing is that Rosewood Drive is access from Route 116, a state highway. I've seen what DPW said. I've seen what the fire department said. Does any one of you work in the fire department? Or used to?
That's off topic.
Okay, well, 7 years ago, that mobile home it is a topic, that was rebuilt for their home existing now, that was burning down. And the fire trucks and the ambulances couldn't even get up the road because it was so icy and sandy, and the neighbor down below me didn't give a hoot and had a sander on the back of his truck, and while his apartment is burning down out back. So that does concern me, that we do need to have the access. So I've been taking care of that road. I've been plowing that road. I've been grading that road. I've been breaking my back on that road. So you can understand the concern that all of a sudden, no, we don't need a state highway permit. Well, it's gonna have to have road improvements. If you're proposing to put allowable, according to the bylaws, 2 more dwellings, whether single and or...
So Craig, I'm gonna stop you right there because the state highway permit is not issued by this board. So
All right.
let's stay on topic.
I'll move right off of that.
Craig, that's 3 times I've asked you to stay on topic. You are wandering all over the place.
Okay.
All right?
I'm just going by your notes.
And if you read in there, it states that there is a state highway permit that will be issued by Department of Transportation. It's not this board.
Okay.
Okay?
So, but it does
It
say...
also does state in there that should this be one of the recommendations is that the road be maintained.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the town.
Yeah. I've
That's
been
the
maintaining
town.
it because the town can't get
No,
it.
that would be the applicant maintaining it, not you. And so the town is aware of that, and the town is making that a requirement, should this move forward.
I like that word right there. Should. All right. So traffic. We were here last year. Williston Central School and Champlain Valley Union High School will not pick up and drop off at our road. If you know that area, Du Bois Corner, it's at Sharp Corner, and there's a spur road that connects it to South Cornell. That is where I have to pick up and drop off my kids. My 7th grader goes to WCS. If I'm not there, she's dropped off down there. I've made arrangements with the Du Bois, my neighbors, to have her picked up. The buses will not, the town will not, the school district will not pick up and drop off because they say it's too dangerous. When we're coming southbound on 116 and we put on our left blinker and we come over that hill, if there is one car pulling out of Rosewood Drive One car, you can't pull in. And I'm seeing again that you're not requesting a traffic study, that there's a 2.02 peak hour trip ends. Accident after accident is on that road, and I don't want more houses being put in that are gonna create problems for them and problems for us. I'm requesting that a traffic study, please, be done. Please. For the safety of our kids, if the houses get approved to go through, for the safety of the people who are gonna live there. That's all I'm asking. And I think these things should be done before it's, sure, go for it. It's a parent's request. It's the staff who made this recommendations, they don't live on Rosewood Drive. They don't know how bad it is there. And we want to add more houses to that area with no study made. So 2 dwelling units means 2 single dwelling units or 2 family dwelling units?
These 2 single dwelling units.
2 single dwelling. Okay, that was quick. And reviewed by other boards and town departments. Here's where I'm gonna just get right into kind of my wrap up. No smiles from anybody on that one. All right. So driveway shall be a solid base 14 feet in width. I know the rule is no less than 12 feet, no more than 16. So 14 is perfect. It's right in the middle. Driveway shall have slopes no greater than 10%. It doesn't. Maintaining pet clear 12 months of the year.
Craig, we're not here to debate the qualities of the road. That is controlled by DPW.
Okay, so with that said though, the board's power is to say yes or no to the pre-applicant. And I'm telling you right now, that all these recommendations that it's a thorough letter, are not being met, are not being done, and my last piece of paper in closing, out of all the notes that were here, I'll get off of was this done? I think I can, on my check boxes, I think I can say, no it wasn't, no it wasn't, no it wasn't, no it wasn't. This is a pre-application process, so let's give them the pre-application. Then we'll go into March and see if the growth will allow it, because now they're just asking for 2, and so it's really not a huge development, but we're gonna put 5.25 to the side for future development, because it's easier to bite off. How do you eat an elephant 1 bite at a time? So I can see where this is gonna head, so let me just simply say this in my notes. I would request the board postpone the pre-approval until the applicant has provided such documentation that they will have no adverse effect on my well. I find this interesting is that for the last 14 plus years, I have been paying tax on what was understood as my property. Now, when I brought that up at the last meeting, and then the attorney still hasn't, I guess, gotten to the documentation of the letter, this was my property, this wasn't my property. Remember the little finger we were talking about on the map? It's on some, it's not on others. By the way, it's still not on some of the website, because this is your front page on your website. It doesn't show that that's the property. But I had it surveyed, and you know what I found out from that survey? Is that if it is not my property, that well is awfully close, my property, is awfully close to that road. And according to the Vermont Water Supply Rule, Chapter 21, any roadway, parking lot, outer edge of a shoulder, should Rosewood Drive become Rosewood Street, needs to be 25 feet from any corner of any water supply. Since it's a drive, it's a private road, a driveway, less than 3 residences, and right now it is less than 3, not 3 or less than 3, it is required distance 15 feet. The corner of that road, as it sits right now, is 18 feet. So I am in compliance with the state of Vermont Water Supply Rules, Chapter 21. We're talking about upgrades, we're talking about pitches, we're talking about roads, we're talking about right-of-ways. It does not and will not meet an additional house. Now, this is all information that you all weren't told. TCE wasn't going to give you this information. This is what I meant by that first picture last year. If any part of this is false, how much more of it is false? And it has caused me to do my homework, to hire attorneys and to hire civil engineers to find out that I'm not against people developing their land. I'm against the development encroaching upon my rights, my responsibilities, my care and concern over my family, and now, according to what you all have, minus what you don't have, which I just came upon this today, so I guess if somebody gets an email just today, I just was given this today. I want to save you all a lot of time and them a whole lot of money. A whole lot more is going to go into this, and it's just going to be a waste. It's just going to be a waste. And so I don't want to keep coming back here. I'm not trying to squelch the project. I'm trying to say there's a lot of falsehoods in this. There's a lot of don'ts, as Mr. Paul brought up, that have not been addressed. And here we sit a year later, and I'm concerned. I'm really concerned. The state water rules require setbacks from driveways to water sources to ensure no contamination occurs. I don't see how any road improvements could be made to roads without contaminating our water source. I request that you hold off on allowing them to go to the growth management or even the pre-application until not only the wetlands delineation paperwork has been provided, because this was pre-app before, it was requested, they did get the yes, go ahead, and then we now are looking at a different way to slice this pie. And I don't want to come back here in December or next, or even November, or even next October with the pie being sliced another way. Why can't we get the yes check marks in the right column before this continues to go forward and forward and forward? I'm requesting the traffic study. I'm requesting that you look into these facts of it's too close to my well. And I'm looking at the wetlands. It's absolutely amazing. How can you give a pre-app to go into the growth test and study and then give them a development application if all these things that were requested last year are not being done?
So, just as a point of clarification, this is a whole new hearing. And it may not seem like it, because I know you were here a year ago a couple of different times. The applicant went through the whole process last year and did not gain any lots through growth management. They went back to the beginning. So while I understand that you do feel like this is just an extension of the prior hearing, from the bureaucracy standpoint, it's not. So here we are actually just opening the door. And you may not like that euphemism, but we are at the beginning of the process. It is starting all over. Everything is new. Nothing is carried forward. And it is, you have the right, you have the right to present your material. The applicant has the right to present theirs. I suggest that if you believe that you have found areas of concern within the law, you referenced your water system, I suggest that you deliver it to the staff as your evidence or your submittal. And I would like to remind you that this is the beginning of the process, and no decisions are being made. Okay.
So with that said, and I hear what you're saying, it's the same development number. It's the talk about the wetlands and the attorney. So some of it is an overlap.
It's actually not. Bureaucratically, it's not. Okay. I understand the topic is the same.
Okay. So my request before pre-app, okay, my biggest thing are two things. First, my kids and the people who live on that road, adding more traffic. Please do a study before you pre-approve this app. Pre-app. The second thing is my well. It's not gonna, I'll submit the paperwork, I'll have my attorney, I guess, call the town's attorney, and I guarantee you it'll be read sooner than 5 months later. We're gonna waste a whole lot of time. I'm just trying to save some time and save some money. And if you're gonna give them the application to go forward with this, I really hope you take into consideration that before you do. We have that study done.
The Studies are done after pre-app, okay? Again, the decision doesn't get made, until the second or third hearing. Pre-app is a point where we discuss it, we decide whether the applicant has the right to move forward, and that decision will be issued later on.
Later on when, tonight?
No, you could call the staff in the morning.
So can I get the wetlands? Can I have the attorney and the civil engineer send you the,
Any documents that have been filed with the staff, you are entitled to. They will happily give you any public documents that have been.
no, I'm talking about the findings that I just came across, that my well,
If you have evidence that you would like to submit, you may do so to staff.
and who do I email that to? Emily, I think I have your email. I think we've spoken.
Yeah, anyone else is fine.
And can I get that submitted, please, before you make your decision? We're gonna waste time if you say go for it, because then this is all gonna come out later. And it's just gonna waste their money and your time.
So that's a request, we'll take your request into consideration.
Thank you, sir. That's all I have to say.
That's it?
That is it.
Okay. Other questions from the floor? Sir?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kevin Mazuzin. I live at 1120 Butternut Road. I'm a resident of the ARZD. And I just wanted, it's been brought up already, but I did want to comment on the open space, and I encourage the board to recommend that the land, the 5.25 acres, be added to the open space. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments from the audience? We have any questions from the board for the applicant? No? 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 Any other comments from the audience? Okay. Sir,
Thank you for your patience and listening to me.
that's what we're here for. Okay. One last time. Everybody said their piece? Ma'am, anything else you'd like to, anything else you would like to add? Questions from the board?
I just want to
Comments?
reiterate that I don't want the 5 acres added to the open space.
Okay. The board.
It's not necessary, so
Okay.
I wouldn't.
Excuse me. Kevin Mazuzin again.
Yes, sir.
With that comment, my concern, and I think it's been shared already tonight, is that what happens in the future, including that space, I think is really important to the development, especially in this area where we're really trying to move forward as a community in protecting open space and having less development. Those 4 family sites or potential homes there would really detrimentally affect that area and how the area looks moving forward.
So you've touched on, I'm going to get into an area I should probably stay away from, but I'm not going to. You have touched on 2 areas. You've touched on property rights, and you've touched on development. Our unified bylaw requires in the ARZD that a parcel being developed dedicate 75% of the open space to open space. Not 76%, not 78%, 75%. So they've done that. That's the law. You can't sit there and say it's got to be more than the law. That goes against what we all do, how we all live our lives. Now, the board can take that into account, but this chair thinks that's a pretty unfair statement. It's almost a taking of land. And again, I'm probably way off the reservation here. If the applicant decided to come back in and ask to permit that land, then she would have to go all the way back and start over on that land. You've heard Craig's points. Valid or not, the points he's done his research, and there are grade issues, there are well issues, there are all kinds of issues that would need to be covered in order to develop it. So just by the mere fact that that the applicant has not, that is requesting to retain control over her own land, does not automatically mean that they get to permit it or they get to build houses on it. So let's try and keep that in perspective.
Absolutely, and my comment really stems from the staff's report where that was written, and that they were making a recommendation to the board.
Well, I think they brought it to the, I'm not necessarily sure they made a recommendation. I believe what they were bringing the issue to the attention of the board. I think that's.
And with that door being open, then that's the reason why I showed up this evening to share my.
Sure, yeah, and I, look, everybody has an opinion, and everybody cares about their own property. I'm sure the applicant cares as much about her property as you do about yours. But there is a process here, and we do try really hard to make sure that it's fair and that everybody gets a chance to speak their piece, and that we as a quasi-judicial board don't do anything that steps outside of the lines of where our jurisdiction lies. We try to be very fair in what we do. It's not even a fair issue. We try to uphold the law. That's really the job that we do. If you don't like what we're doing, you have the right to appeal, to the environmental court. And that happens every now and then too. Thankfully, not very often. But, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Shola Sampson, I just have a question. So if they do develop that.
I'm sorry.
Shola Sampson, 120 Rosewood.
Yep.
So the discussion that 5.something acre they reserve later, if they do develop or whatever is the name later, so they still have to fit this to 75% open land from that, no.
She would have to go, if you want to,
Because it's less than 10 and a half acres, that requirement only
not.
applies to 10 and a half acres and greater.
and greater. So did you heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is why I don't close hearings too quickly, because questions stem from other questions, and people think about, come up with an idea, and I try very hard to make sure that that everybody gets a chance, and we do keep the hearing open, other than slamming the door on it too quickly. Any other questions, comments, except Mr. Sampson?
That's what I was waiting for. Thank you.
You're entitled.
I appreciate it. I'm glad we're that.
Any other questions? Any other comments, questions from the board? No. Going once? Ma'am? All set?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. We're going to close DP 19-03 Brownells / Lamarck 3-lot subdivision at 8 o'clock. Have a good evening, everybody.
I'm gonna give you a pat on that. You deserve it.
Jesus. Okay. Okay. Next up. Next up is DP 13-19.4 GIT Realty LLC requesting a discretionary permit.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing well, you?
I'm good. I'm good. Sir, if you would state your name and your address for the record, please.
Scott Miller, business address is 64 Harvest Lane, Suite 10 currently, Williston, Vermont.
Okay, got it. Welcome. Let's see here. Hold on one second. There we go. Okay, who's up? Emily.
All right.
Emily, before you get started, can I ask, based on, this hearing was continued from a prior date.
Correct.
The board did request a number of items.
Yes.
Have they been provided to you?
Yes, and I will go over that in the staff
Very good,
report.
thank
So
you.
what's included is, it should be date stamped October 12th, is the revised site plan that the applicant submitted. You'll see on the bottom right, above Summit Engineering, it labels the date that the engineer made the updates. So, yes.
Okay, thank you.
This is a request for a discretionary permit review. of a proposal to establish an outdoor display area at 4705 Williston Road in the Industrial Zoning District West. This property is currently developed with an existing structure, parking, and related site improvements. This hearing was opened on September 25th and continued to October 23rd. The board requested additional information on the site plan. The applicant submitted a revised site plan, and staff has updated the staff report accordingly. What follows is a brief project history. Pre-application review is not required due to the scale of the proposed project. The findings of fact. I'll be a little bit brief on some of them that we covered last time. The proposed use is allowed to locate harvest equipment at this property. There's a list of certain development activity that's not proposed, such as new structures, site work, etc. No changes to access are proposed. And then the main topic of the evening, outdoor sales and storage. The applicant is proposing outdoor sales and outdoor storage. These are allowed uses, but only within areas designated for that purpose on an approved plan. The applicant must amend DP 13-19 because the number, location, and configuration of proposed display areas are different than previously approved. The applicant is proposing outdoor storage in compliance with WDB 36.7.2. The outdoor storage areas are located on the north side of the warehouse and the east side of the building overall. The September 25th staff report misidentified this location as display area number 3 when it is actually a storage area. The area will be contained and screened by a 6-foot-tall chain link fence with green privacy slats. See photo 2 included with the applicant's narrative letter. This fence is depicted on the site plan with a different symbol than the one used for the rope and bollard fence, as requested by the DRB. A loading ramp is also identified in photo 3 and is in compliance. The applicant is proposing 4 outdoor display areas. These areas are numbered in the staff report for the table, and then on the site plan, the display areas are also identified. The first area is at the southwestern corner of the building, a grassy unpaved area located in the front yard and outside the 35-foot front yard setback. The applicant is proposing a rope and bollard fence to delineate the setback. This area complies as proposed. The next area is to the east, to the left of the building, and south of the row of cedars. This gravel area is separate from the paved parking lot and separate from the access to the main entrance. It's outside the required setbacks and landscape buffers. This area complies as proposed. The third area is located along the eastern property line. It's a grassy area with small patches of gravel from when it used to be the tombstone display area in the past. The site plan depicts 3 boulders to delineate the 9-foot side yard setback and 35-foot front yard setback. Boulders were chosen instead of fencing to allow access to the snow storage area. At the last hearing, the board asked for a fence along that front yard setback. In discussions with the applicant, it made sense to do boulders because it'll clearly mark those setback areas for the display equipment, but be more functional for winter snow storage. And the last area is at the rear of the property line, along the landscape buffer and next to the proposed dumpster enclosure. This area is also identified for snow storage. This is where Burke's Barbecue food truck is currently located, and this area complies as proposed. Staff notes that allowing snow storage display in that spot doesn't void the previous approval for a mobile food vendor on the property. Next in the finding facts is setbacks. The subject parcel is adjacent to 2 public ways. The front yard setback in this district is 35 feet from the boundaries adjacent to public ways. No display areas are proposed in the front yard setback. The site plan depicts fencing and boulders to delineate the setbacks and contain the storage areas. The updated site plan identifies the dedicated easement to the town for road construction. The town tax map appears to incorporate the dedicated easement into the Industrial Ave right-of-way. See photo on the page 1 of this report, which is the town's tax parcel map, more of an artist's caricature of property lines than an actual plat. So the staff understands the property lines to be as depicted as on the applicant's site plan. Next, landscaping and street trees. Because the subject parcel is adjacent to 2 public ways and 2 industrial properties, the site plan identifies existing and proposed landscaping. The applicant is proposing to plant 4 shrubs along the corner of the display area near the Williston Road Industrial Ave intersection. At the public hearing on September 25th, the DRB discussed the landscaping and street tree requirements. The board requested landscaping along the display area fencing in lieu of street trees. Street trees can be considered a type 4 landscape buffer provided in bylaw chapter 26. Planting trees outside the right-of-way along Williston Road and Industrial Ave would conflict with the existing parking areas as well as future AOT intersection improvements. As discussed on September 25th, street trees would interfere with intersection visibility and may be removed by the state when the intersection construction begins. The bylaw states that street tree standards shall apply to all development for which a discretionary permit is required. The board must decide if the proposed shrubs satisfy the front yard landscaping requirements as described in the bylaw quoted below. Next is parking. The applicant is not proposing changes to parking. The project does not generate a requirement for additional parking. Portions of the parking areas are existing non-conforming, as the original site plan was approved under an old set of regulations. 2 parking areas are located in the 35-foot front yard setback, 7 spaces along Industrial Ave and 13 spaces along Williston Road. The revised site plan shows a rope and bollard fence along the parking area and outside the Road 2 right-of-way in response to the AOT comments. That fence is the same symbol for both rope and bollard fence, and it's right up on the edge of pavement line, so it can be a little bit hard to depict, to see. Staff reached out to the Vermont Agency of Transportation for comment because the parking is located in the front yard setback and very close to the right-of-way. AOT has planned upgrades for the Industrial Ave Williston Road intersection scheduled for 2020. David Black, District 5 Administrator, commented, "We need controlled access in the area until the project installs the curb. The parking needs to be outside the state right-of-way. If the existing curb is currently in the state right-of-way or not functioning, some type of temporary curb, delineators, or vegetation needs to be installed to control the parking." And they have satisfactorily met that comment by showing the fence. What follows is a table of the parking analysis. At the last hearing, bicycle parking was discussed. Bicycle parking complies as proposed. The applicant has identified an outdoor bicycle rack near the main entrance. That's identified on the site plan. And long-term bicycle storage within the building is described in the project narrative letter. The property is also compliant with ADA requirements. Parking lot landscaping, additional landscaping is not required. A traffic study is not required for the scale of this project. Designated snow storage areas are shown and in compliance. Trash and recycling containers are identified as dumpster enclosure, and enclosures comply with our solid waste standards. This project is not subject to design review because the applicant has not proposed a new structure or major addition. Properties that abut Route 2 in this zoning district are subject to design review. No wetlands and waterways are present. And the existing nonconformities are the parking areas. We reached out to Public Works, Police, and Fire for comment. Police did not respond. The fire department commented, and the applicant has met with the fire department to meet their labeling and access requirements. The Public Works commented about Burke's Barbecue, and we now note that that food truck will be removed in October. And the Department of Public Works has no comments on the revised site plan provided tonight. Staff recommends approval of this discretionary permit with the recommended findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval as drafted. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Sir, what would you like to add?
It's pretty well stated there. We're just looking to move down the street and make sure we're permitted properly and in compliance. So.
Okay. Okay. Nothing else? Okay. Questions from the board?
I just have a question around area 4, the 1,600 square feet.
Yes.
What does that entail there? That whole border area, or?
Yeah, so it's a grassy area, and it's marked by the edge of pavement for the paved access drive, and then the landscape buffer behind it.
So it's just that area, it's not like if you go over to where the dry well is, that corner either? Or does it include that corner too?
Correct. Yeah, that area is, it's not part of that area. That 1,600 feet is pretty much just where it says snow storage display to the left of the dumpster enclosure. Mhm.
Yep, I'm good with it.
Emily, can you just clarify one thing for me back on page 2, number 4, outdoor sales and storage? The line that states, the applicant must amend DP 13-19 because the number, location, and configuration of the proposed display areas are different. I assume that means than previously approved.
Yes, that's correct.
So the assumption, what I'm getting is that this still did not come in correct?
This did come in correct, so that's talking about its history. It used to be Upon This Rock in the past.
Yep.
Upon This Rock had different outdoor storage. If you look in the satellite imagery, you can kind of see the rows where the tombstones were. And then it was Sears Hometown Store. So each of those different businesses had a little bit different of a setup. And this is just a new permit, so Harvest Equipment has their own layout approved.
So you're comfortable with the numbering and numerical process that's listed on here?
Yes, this makes sense to us. This makes it so we can walk out on the site, know where the fences are, know where the boulders are, and where things are supposed to be very clearly. This is probably, looking through the history on it, the best outdoor storage site plan done on the property so far. I think Sears Hometown was hand-drawn.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Was the one that had the color, nice red lines drawn on it.
Other questions or comments from the board? Pete?
I just want to say that the changes to the plan are easy to follow and appreciated.
Good. Paul?
No, it's good.
All
There you
set?
go.
Anything else you'd like to add, Scott?
Looking forward to hearing
Great.
on an
Good.
answer.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you for coming. We're going to close DP 13-19.4, Harvest Equipment at 8:17. Thank you, have a good evening.
You ought to contact the concrete company, park one of your lawnmowers up there for people, they can go test mow.
Yeah, I like it. Thank you.
Okay, you're back on, here we go. All right, welcome back to the Town of Williston's Development Review Board for Tuesday, October 23. We're out of deliberation at 8:30. Do I have a motion to approve DP 19-03 Brownell Lamarche 3-lot subdivision?
As authorized by WDB 663, I, Paul Christensen, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all accompanying materials, including the recommendation of the town staff and the advisory boards recommended to comment on this application by the Williston Development Bylaw, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of October 23rd, 2018, accept the recommendations proposed by staff for the review of DP 13-03 and authorize the applicant to proceed to residential growth management allocation.
Great, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Dave seconds it. Any further discussion? No further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4 ayes, no nays, motion carries. VP 18-21, the Robert family has been continued to November 13th. Do I have a motion to approve DP 13-19.4 GIT Realty LLC?
Yes. As authorized by WDB 6.6.3, I, David Turner, move the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all accompanying materials, including the recommendations of the town staff and the advisory boards required to comment on this application by the Williston Development Bylaws, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of September 25th, 2018, and October 23rd, 2018, and the findings and fact and conclusions of law proposed by the staff for the review of DP 13-19.4, and approve this discretionary permit subject to conditions above. This approval authorizes the applicant to file final plans, obtain approval for these plans from staff, and then seek administrative permit for the proposed development, which must proceed in strict conformance with the plans on which this approval is based.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Pete seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Let's see here. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of September 25th, 2018?
I'll move to approve the minutes of September 25th, 2018, as written.
John Hemmelgarn actually emailed, there's a sentence fragment to get removed.
There is a
Sentence fragment.
sentence fragment. Do we know where the sentence fragment is?
In John Hemmelgarn's email, yes.
Okay.
So approved as
the
modified.
chair notes that John Hemmelgarn has submitted an email with an amendment to the minutes of September 25th, stating that there is a sentence fragment. We don't know where it is.
I think it's in, just the public hearing stuff. I don't think it'll change the vote or anything.
So it's fair to represent that it's just cleanup,
Yes. Clean up, more grammatical.
grammatical cleanup?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I still approve his second.
So I will make a motion to approve the minutes dated September 25th, 2018, as amended by John Hemmelgarn's email to Emily.
So second. Let's go.
We could, do you have that access and?
Oh, I have that technology. I forgot
Let's do that, because I'm not
Forgot
sure
the
that we
whole world
want
was
to
sitting
amend
right
something
next to
based on somebody's
Yeah,
email who's not here.
let's do it in an official way.
Okay. It's loading.
Let's see where we are. Let's see where we are and verify it. Verify it. Let's see how quickly Emily can come up with it.
Depends how many emails she gets a day.
I've gotten too many today.
Well, see,
Busy day.
Yes, it was.
There's a search function there.
I just did that.
Just had to do that.
How can you lose somebody whose last name is Hemmelgarn?
It's loading. Now it's saying message isn't loading.
Messages.
So we have two
It's-
choices. We can, if you do
Yeah,
believe
it's-
that it is a sentence fragment, I'm going to ignore it and approve the minutes as written, or if the board thinks, we will delay approving the minutes, which may affect some of the applicants.
Oh, here, okay, it loaded. It states, Peter Kelly asked if there was anything application.
And where is that?
And where is this?
Page 19.
Thank you.
19 and 24, yeah.
Okay.
Find it?
Peter Kelly asked if there was anything application. So what should that?
To add to the application? I feel like that's something you usually say.
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We are going to note on page 19 of 24 that there is a sentence fragment, on the page. And simply leave it at that.
I agree with that.
All right, would you like to, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as written with the sentence fragment on page 19 of 24?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Dave seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4 ayes, no nays. Motion carries with the sentence fragment attached. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting and go watch the Red Sox?
So moved.
So moved. We will adjourn the hearing at 8:27. Thanks, everybody. That was sort of fun.